Let's get salty!
Everyone, Zeddy here again today with a brand new video, and it's time to give our crafting guide, our suggestions on what cards are the must craft so far from the Great Dark Beyond. We'll also just say if it's more of a fringe pick or just absolutely don't craft it anytime soon. And as always, if you enjoy the content on the channel, feel like I've earned your subscription, please hit that sub button down below. Give the video a like as we're on the road to 90,000 subscribers. So we're only going to look at epics and legendaries since commons and rares. Very easy to open, very easy to craft. And starting off with the epics for Death Knight, of Akanai Death Speaker, which is a 1-mana 1/3 after another friendly minion is reborn. Summon a copy of it. So far hasn't really found a home. Just kind of a weird niche card, right? Like that effect. One deck maybe will pop up, it'll be good, but certainly not worth going out of your way to craft. You could consider Guiding Figure. Absolutely. The basically it's the Starship card. Show the one you can read the text on, where it's got Spellburst, trigger a random friendly minion's death rattle. It's also Starship piece. I've noted some lists have already cut this card, where they still do Starship Death Knight is valid, but a lot of lists don't run it. It's more of that kind of optional one. So if you want to play Starship Death Knight, you don't necessarily need this card. So it's really, do you want this card in that deck? I wouldn't go out of my way to crafting it, but it's one of those that you can reasonably craft and have success with if that's what you're looking for. For legendaries, Exarch Maladar is an absolute must craft card. It is incredibly strong. Being able to use that battle cry of the next card you play this turn costs corpses instead of mana. Being able to cheat out, let's say, a Climactic Necrotic Explosion, a Reno, a Primus, a Ziliax, super powerful. It is seeing a ton of play. One of the best cards of the entire expansion. We revealed it, so I guess that feels a little bit good, but still, you know, mana cheat good. Who would have thought? And then the 8 Hands from Beyond, probably not really worth a craft. There are synergies like with Kill Jaden or like, you know, a tech option against asteroids, but asteroids aren't going crazy yet. And this card is not performing particularly well. And you can just play like Hematurge and try to discover. I would say it's not completely out of the question. If you want to craft it and like go Cattle Rustler, that could be a pretty good thing. But overall, no deck is really thriving with it. And the double blood requirement kind of holds it back a little. Death Knight is just a sad state of affairs. If you've opened an epic from Death Knight, you're probably gonna want to like disenchant it and craft another epic from another class, because yes, Eldritch being just a really awkward, kind of weird card. 1-mana 1/3 Outburst and Spellburst, shuffle your hand. Like there's no real reason to shuffle your hand unless you're playing, I guess, the sus, you know, the recruit thing, but that deck's terrible. And this card doesn't really have a purpose outside of that. And just the way the Outcast and Spellburst work, it's just not intuitive. It's not great. And yeah, don't craft that. Emergency Meeting, the whole crewmate mechanic in general, not working out. This is probably one of the better cards in that deck, but the deck's not very good. It's, I feel like, a very far ways away from being good. We can see a bunch of nerfs and buffs, and I'm not sold on it being good. So yeah, I would not craft either one of those cards. Same goes for legendaries. Didra, Rebel Captain, arguably the worst card of the set, one of the worst cards. You don't want to play this in like a sus deck, because then you're just drawing these terrible crewmates. Like the idea is like I draw a bunch of that, I play them, but if I'm just drawing those, it's kind of hard to draw. It's a weird one. It's almost like this card should have Battlecry draw one and Death Rattle draw one, and it still would probably not be great. It's a shame though, because the signature is so good. But yeah, I would not craft that. And so far, Zortoth, Breaker of Stars, also not really panning out, not performing particularly well. And of course, I have signatures for both of them. But yeah, I cannot recommend crafting any of the Demon Hunter stuff. The only thing that's working in Demon Hunter this set is the Starship stuff in like aggro, and it's all commons and rares. So that's basically all they got to work with until the next balance patch. Druid's another class that isn't really popping off with their new stuff. Cosmic Phenomenon is a great card. If you've opened this, I don't recommend getting rid of it. I wouldn't go out of my way to crafting it yet until some stuff kind of pops off, but I'm 100% certain this card will be a meta player. The numbers don't indicate that yet, but I do feel like over time, like this, with the particular, once the Starship stuff, if it gets going next rotation or after next balance patch, this is such an insane card when you double it up. But again, it's more of like, you can craft it, you can play it. You're not going to have a lot of great success right now. I do think it'll be valid in the future. In Final Frontier, it's got a shot at some point, but right now, it's a bit too slow. The fact you can always, well, almost always feels like get one of the Yogs is super strong. For now, I'm going to pass on the epics for Druid, and for legendaries, Exarch Othar. There's like Starship Druid stuff going on right now. They're not even playing this. They're just playing the Armor Starship card. This is a great card. The second Starship Druid is good. You're going to want to craft this card. It is so insane when you have it reliably going off and doubling up. There's so many good arcane spells. It just hasn't happened quite yet. So it'll be another one of like probably, but not quite yet in terms of a craft. And yeah, Ulu's really bad. We figured it'd be bad. It's not a great card. Certainly one you don't even want to consider crafting, even though I do think it's a cool card. It's just not very good. For Hunter so far, Parallax Cannon hasn't really worked out, which surprises me. 3 mana, 12 damage weapon, but you gotta be discovering constantly, which is something to kind of want to do. One I would keep my eye on, but one I would not craft at the moment. However, Starship Hunter is a valid deck. If you like that archetype, you absolutely want Specimen Claw. I think I underrated this card originally. After your opponent plays a mini, attack it. It's kind of like tech against Yogg once you build your starship, which is pretty cool. And if you're like me, I always forget about this attacking my minion, and it always kills stuff. I'm like, oh crap. But overall, the card's performing all right. Starship Hunter is a valid deck, and don't buy the signatures, way too expensive. I did. But yes, crafting, if you like that deck and you like Starship Hunter, absolutely valid craft. It's not like super high on my list, but definitely one I would consider. Just not like a must craft. And speaking of must crafts, Exarch Niall, absolutely insane card. Super good, replacing your hero power tracking, discovering a card from your deck, has crazy synergies with like that one drop in particular, but still, just a ridiculously good card. If you want to play Honor, you want this card. And probably in Wild too. I haven't seen, Wild was like Holy Wrath dominant. We'll see how that evolves. But in Wild, you might even want to play this. You probably want to play this. It's just such a good card. Gorm is a fringe. It's not as bad as I originally rated it, but it's not great. Even in those egg decks, it's really got to be a mulligan win rate card. Like, you really need your opener. You need specific eggs. It's okay, but I would not go out of my way to crafting it. But if it's a card you really like and you want to give it a go, I don't think you'll be too upset about it. But again, definitely, if you got to get one Hunter Legendary, it is absolutely Niall. For epics, you can pass on both. For Mage, you got Pocket Dimension. Great value. Good, decent value card. Does that matter to Hearthstone these days? Absolutely not. Plus, Mage has got Big Spell Mage and it's got Elemental Mage, none of which want anything to do with value. In Supernova, same deal. You could cheat it out to get some crazy spells, but more of a card you want to create, not really one you want to craft. But oh my god, it is such a beautiful card. Kind of a shame. And for the legendaries so far, I gave a 5 stars to Exarch Kataru, not really making the cut because again, like I always fall for, it's like value. But I do think this card, especially after rotation, could be absolutely busted. But for now, Draenei Mage, not really popping off, and it just doesn't serve a purpose in those other really popular mage decks at the moment. And Siren, I mean, this card's nuts. If you want to play Elemental Mage, this card is phenomenal. It's a kind of a high roll card. It's actually one of the worst cards in the deck though. So like, you want to play Elemental Mage and you're only missing this card, and Elemental Mage is likely to get nerfed in the first patch. You might not want to actually craft this, right? It's very specific to one style of deck, and the deck win rate I think is around like 58%. The drawn win rate on this card is actually 53%, which means it's like bringing the win rate of the deck kind of down. It's not performing amazingly well outside of those pop-offs. So I won't say it's a must craft, but if you really like Elemental Mage and this is something you're interested in, yeah, the deck's performing well. This card's pretty good, but again, not super highly recommended despite the fact the deck is so dominant. And this is a card that's not going to get nerfed in that process, right? They're going to nerf other cards if it gets nerfed. Paladin Librams just have not been good. They are way too slow. I cannot recommend crafting any Libram card so far. I do think it's guaranteed they're going to get buffed because the whole archetype, right? Half the expansion is dedicated to Libram. So you know they're going to get buffed, and then you can consider crafting it at that time. But as it stands, Libram of Divinity would not craft, and this card's just bad. Celestial Aura. Paladin wants to go wide and buff stuff. They don't want to go narrow and have a 10-10. It just doesn't make any sense in the class whatsoever, and the numbers reflect that. It's doing terribly. And again, I can't recommend Librams yet. I do think, again, it'll probably be worth playing at some point, but as it stands, even for Wild, not really making the cut. And of course, I got the signature. But Lumia, especially Pipsy Paladin, really good card in that deck. Just a big ass body with a lifesteal, basically his taunt can save your butt. You can replay it with Conman, although Conman could get a nerf in the future. That's a possibility, and then you don't get Lumia Dust, but I still think this card's gonna be relevant in decks for quite a while. And if you want to play Paladin, you especially like the bigger decks, Lumia I think is pretty much mandatory, or at least a really good addition to those decks. The drawn win rate's really solid. Slot into a bunch of decks there, keeping the win rate around 50%, but still, absolutely a card I would think is worth crafting. For Priest, and I might have a video highlighting this deck. I haven't tried it yet. I'm thinking of maybe a Monday gameplay video. Gravity Lapse. This card is doing really well. This card's actually doing really well because of its synergies with Astral Automaton. Basically being able to set it to the lowest just rebuffs everything, and that could be quite strong. And it's like a bit of a neutral, like, eliminating some stats on the board from the opponent. If you're like Astral Automaton Priest, and again, I'll try to have a video highlighting that deck soon, this actually is doing quite well. So it's probably worth a craft for that. Don't know what else is really seeing playing, but the card's performing well. And Mystified Toka, we've had the 42 Priest, kind of a meme at the moment. Wouldn't go out of my way to crafting it yet, but I do think the power of this card is there and will be figured out or will get better over time. So it's more of a fringe one, but again, definitely not on that must craft territory. And the legendaries, both of them so far, not performing particularly well. Cure the Light Beyond, getting a bunch of 3-drops. Just there's not enough synergy for this. I could see it working at some point. It's a powerful effect. I just feel like the support isn't there yet. Same goes for a Scar, right? Getting that next Draenei. Right now, no slower Draenei deck is working at all. There is like a somewhat Draenei Priest, but it's super aggro based, very early game based. And yeah, Ascara doesn't make the cut. So for legendaries, yeah, Priest, you could pass on both of them. Rogue Lucky Common is actually a card. It's very fringe play, but the win rate's like, okay, I'm not going to recommend it at all, but I do think this is a card to look out for over time. Just getting that value plus getting double combo on a minion can be good, but right now it's just not played a ton, and the decks that run it are just, yeah, I can't really recommend it. And oh my god, well, we know this card, Quasar. Don't we all love it? We know what it's doing in the game. Its mulligan win rate is the best part of the card. Can you believe that? Nearing like 50% if it's in your opener. But yeah, everybody like hates this card or loves it. It's like one way or the other. I think it's almost certainly to get nerfed. So if you want to try it out, I could recommend crafting it on that basis. I would be shocked. I would be absolutely shocked if this card isn't nerfed and then you're like, you get your dose back when it gets nerfed. But if you don't want to take that risk, the deck is not performing particularly well, but you get like a solo player adventure in your Hearthstone game that you could try out for a while until, yeah, I do think it will get nerfed. There's just so much outcry about it, and yeah, I think quality of life is going to say we should probably nerf that. And oh yeah, Tolgath. Tolgath is a card. It's not terrible. To be fair, this card's not terrible. It just doesn't really serve a purpose in like a more board-based rogue deck because they don't exist. All the rogue decks are pure scam. They don't fight for board. And Tolgath kind of wants to fight for board a little bit, right? They don't do that. There's no tempo rogues anymore. So yeah, Tolgath, not very good. And Starship Rogue is, or sadly, I wanted it to be good. I was so high on it, is crap so far. So unless it gets a significant buff or the meta slows down a ton, yeah, I would not go out of my way to crafting this legendary, the only legendary Starship piece, but I really want the deck to be good because it's a really fun one. So we'll see what happens over time, but yeah, can't recommend any of those legendaries. For Shaman, I'm gonna probably recommend both. Bolai Behemoth, if you want to play Asteroid Shaman, which is like not terrible, it's not amazing, but it's not terrible. You really, really need this card. Some asteroid cards get cut. You don't need necessarily all of them. You need Bolide Behemoth. Being able to scale those asteroids, shuffle in more, not always necessary. Sometimes you just get that battle cry out there, but regardless, scaling it, shuffling it more, super powerful. I find it fun to play. It's very toxic to face once it gets going. But yeah, if you want to play Asteroid Shaman, you will not regret crafting the card. You're probably not going to have an insane win rate right now. It might get better over time, but overall, it's performing well enough that I can recommend it. As with Nebula, there's this big spell Shaman going around that runs Nebula. It's not bad. It's quite fun. This card is insane. At least in Arena, it's insane. And ladder, it's pretty good too. Getting those elusive taunts. He hit like that space rock thing. It's disgusting. Like, that is so much stats. It's absurd. I can recommend it. I don't think they're must crafts, but they are definitely higher on my recommendation list. And for legendaries, Farseer Nabundu. I think it's a really cool card. I guess we'll show the one with text. It's a really cool card. Beautiful. I think it's well designed. I think it's good enough to craft. Like Asteroid Shaman's playing it, the Big Spell Shaman's playing it. The numbers aren't insane on the card. You don't need to go out of your way to craft this one, but it's fun and you're definitely gonna get a good amount of value. You can win with it. It's a competitive enough card and there's not like enough silence and transform effects in the game that early on, especially play it early, that you're gonna feel that punished for playing it. I haven't experienced that too much. So yeah, I can recommend it. And Murmur, I'm worried about this eventually breaking the game. So far, doesn't seem to be breaking the game. It's like, okay, not great. What? You know, I wouldn't recommend crafting this. It's not really popping off quite yet. One to look out for at any point when a certain battle cry minion may emerge. But as it stands, yeah, I'll probably pass on that one. But 3 of the 4 Shaman cards, I will definitely be recommending. They got a pretty good set. For Warlock, if you're playing Wild, Hearthstone's really good in Demon Seed. Standard, it's not worth it. Whether it's like the Opinion Warlocks, Insanity, the healings is not worth it. It's not really worth going out of your way for. But in Wild, where the first time I played this card, I healed for 20 to get my achievement very easily with Dark Glare. Yeah, that was kind of worth it, right? So yeah, this is like a Wild exclusive card at the moment. And Black Hole, it's 8 mana. It's too slow. Wouldn't be shocked if, like, board clears need to be cheaper than 8 mana. When I saw this, I'm like, this could be 7 and it would still be like mediocre. And yeah, at 8, especially like they have demons by chance, not great. And yeah, Demon Warlock, not really popping off quite yet. And speaking of that, I love this card. It's beautiful, but Archimond, the numbers on this card are atrocious. There's just no good way to get good demons right now. What are you generating? It's not worth it, right? Just play Kill Jaded and just get giant demons that way. Kill Jaded, the neutral thing, is just better than this, right? And yeah, it's not worth crafting at all. But if you do buy the Tavern Pass, you get the diamond. So if you do that, you can duplicate protect yourself, I guess. And Kara the Dark Star, as I kind of thought, wouldn't be that great. It's not really good enough to OTK with, and snowballing. People have removal and it's just not quite effective enough. Definitely not one I'm going to recommend, even as a fringe pick. It really hasn't emerged. So Warlock, basically in standard, epics and legendaries, is pretty much a pass this set. For Warriors, at the same story, well, yeah, Dwarf Planet, like, just no. This card, I have basically seen no people play it. The win rates or the sample size I've got to deal with here is like almost nothing on H's replay. It's just a card nobody's playing. No one's even really trying, because what are you going to do with it, right? So I cannot recommend that. Stalwart Avenger, Draenei Warrior just isn't quite good enough to compete with the big decks right now. It's close. I could absolutely see this card in particular emerging as a playable card, especially getting it to automatically attack is really powerful. But I feel like it's a patch or two away from Draenei Warrior having a shot. But I would be shocked if Draenei Warrior does not become a thing over time. As for the legendaries, I'm going to go the same thing. Exarch Akama is actually the lowest, worst performing legendary from Warrior. It's really bad so far, and I can't recommend it in any way. Even in that Draenei Warrior, this card doesn't really see much play in it. It's just, I guess I was thinking there's enough ways to make it attack, but it is very win more, and you have to set it up. It's not making the cut. And Spore Empress Moldara, it's not as horrendously bad as people thought, but it's pretty bad. And yeah, you don't really want to put a bunch of spores into your deck. Much too slow. Plus you have a 6/7 that doesn't do much. So again, I'm going to recommend passing. And then for the neutral epics, Doom Maiden, hard pass. Not a good card. You do not want to be playing this card whatsoever. Ace Wayfinder, again, Draenei stuff hasn't really panned out. This card's okay. It's not bad. Good arena pick, but when I say good arena pick, that means yeah, you probably don't want the card. Cannot recommend crafting. Mutating Lifeform, again, not a card you really want to play. It'd be more of a Draenei card, and it's just board-based decks, they're really not that great for the most part, and these all kind of require the board. It's kind of what we're going to talk about in tomorrow's video of why this set is really struggling. Even though I think it's an awesome expansion, it's a board-based expansion in a non-board-based game right now. Star Volpera, bad card. Like, even to counter starships, it can't hit the dormant thing. You really don't want to be playing this card. It's really rough. Red Giant, one of the worst giants we've seen in a while. Nobody's playing it. I'm looking at stat size from Diamond through Legend. It says times played 2. Like, no one's playing Red Giant. It's just definitely not worth your time to craft. As for the legendaries, well, Shafar would be, but it's free. So, and it's only in Rogue, but it's really good in Rogue. Kill Jaden, absolutely worth a craft. It's a fun card to play. There are certainly control decks that can play it as like that ultimate win con, Wheel Warlock, Death Knight decks. There's Druids are playing it. Very safe craft. And if you want to play those slower decks, you almost want to have this card because your opponent's going to play it. And if they play it, they're just going to win the late game anyways. It's like the old Elysiana issue, right? So yeah, Kill Jaden. I wouldn't say it's a must craft, but certainly a card worth crafting. Again, no Trinide deck is working. Velen, the big payoff for it, is not in a single deck that I can find that has a positive win rate. So I thought this card being incredible, but it turns out the battle cries and death rattles, at least right now, not relevant enough to try and win games. And it also could get silenced, poofed, all that stuff. Rescud, Reaver, like all these things that could punish it, right? Like, again, we're gonna have a video tomorrow talking about all this, but I would not craft this card yet. The Exodar, I would, but it's free, so you don't have to worry about it. And the most must-craft card of the entire expansion is the Ceaseless Expanse. This is an incredible card, even though you can't play it wild right now. The most popular card from the expansion, incredibly strong, being able to clear that board, have a 15-15. You got other synergies like Warlock, right? Getting 15-15 taunts with it or rushers. Super good card. Could get nerfed at some point, you never know. But if there's one card to craft from this expansion, it's this one. Or Ethereal Oracle. Either one of those are like the best cards from the set so far. So yes, we'll end on the positive note. You can craft this one, but overall, lots of passes this set so far. Like I said, very board-based expansion outside of Quasar, which is pissing people off. And it just doesn't work when all the old stuff is really strong. And we'll talk about it tomorrow because I got a lot. I kind of want to get off my chest about this expansion because I think it's great and it kind of tears me up to see it not doing amazingly well. Anyways, if you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. Have a great day and stay salty, my friends.